Welcome back to the Encore Audio's YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. You know, I have found a spindle full of sandy beach. It says Sandy B on it, but it is Sandy Beach. He passed some time ago. You can look down in the description. It gives a description of how and when he passed. He was at a step study, in his daily morning step study meeting, and reading the first step, and what a way to go. Anyways, I found a bunch of workshops and individual talks, the Brentwood meeting. It's my full collection. I hope you enjoy this talk. Have a good day if you want to. I really hope you do.
Thanks, Bill. Well, hi, everybody. My name's Sandy Beach, and I'm an alcoholic. How you all doing? It's nice to be back at Sunlight of the Spirit. I like the name a lot. I like the idea of recovery from alcoholism is going out of the darkness into the light and being led there by someone else who used to be in the darkness, and now they're going towards the light. And we just keep reaching back and pulling one more person out of there, and the line goes on forever, and it goes all over the world. I was born in New Haven, Connecticut in 1931, which is a long time ago. And in 1931, they had no TV. And in 1931, they had no cell phones. And in 1931, they had no jet airplanes. And there was something else that they didn't have that was hurting people like you and I. They didn't have AA. It wasn't on the planet yet. So this unbelievable miracle that's now in 140 countries with 2.5 million miracles that have happened, all happened in my lifetime. And that really is astounding that just bing, all this happened. And before those two gentlemen got together in Akron, Ohio, people like you and I didn't make it. The hospitals got us, and they failed. And they just said, we're sorry, go see how you can make it somewhere else. And the psychiatric offices and the psychiatrists, they would talk to us and talk to us and talk to us, and then they'd go, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do. And the churches tried. God bless them, they tried. But eventually they had to hold their hands up and go, I don't know what this is. And they had to let us go. And the professors and everybody who tried to study this found that they couldn't do anything. So it wasn't as if nobody cared. It's just that nobody knew what to do. And so we were eventually left on our own, generally on the street, generally in jail, and mostly in institutions where they placed us to protect ourselves and to protect society from us. And so alcoholics, since the beginning of time, have just been the outcasts. And I think it's so ironic that when God decided to finally lead the alcoholics out of the darkness, he chose other alcoholics to do it. And when I talk to people about AA, and they go, well, how does it work? And I said, oh, there's people there, and they have achieved all this spiritual wisdom, and they just grab your hand and lead you to the light. And they said, well, who grabbed your hand? I said, oh, it was a Marine captain from a nut ward. And the guy that led him just got out of prison. And we could go on and on. And they look at us and they go, huh? How does that work? And there's no way to explain AA to anyone. My friends asked me, well, what do you do? Especially after I had about 5 years and I looked so different. That's what bothers them. They just look and they go, what happened to you? Are you in a health club? Are you on a diet? What happened to you? And I said, I go to all these meetings, and then that automatically happens. Wow, what do you do at the meetings? Well, we go in there. It's really fun. They have one guy gets there early. He makes the coffee, and then the rest of us just show up, and then somebody is picked to be the leader. So they pick a topic, like resentment. And then we just go around the table, and Mary talks about resentment, and Harry talks about resentment, and talk about it. And then we say the Lord's Prayer and go home. Would you like to come and see? And they go, what? What? But if they come one time, then they understand it. Because they're in the middle of this energy. They're in the middle of this excitement. And it gets inside, and you feel it, and you go, now I know how it works. So that's why we have to do the steps rather than read them. You have to experience. All of spirituality has to be experienced. It cannot be understood. It must be experienced. That's what this is all about. I'm going to talk a lot about AA and a little bit about my story, so I got to go fast, which I can do. Let's see, I have one sister. My parents obviously made it through the Depression somehow. And so there were the four of us. We were raised in the Catholic Church. My sister thought the Catholic Church was the friendliest place she ever saw. I thought it looked like some sort of a prison camp. And they're speaking Latin, and the incense and the nuns are dressed up like secret police. And then they want you to go to confession, and I knew they were just getting evidence for later. When the sentence would be pronounced, and so I didn't want to give them anything good that they're going to use against me. The whole thing was spooky and scary, and my sister's going, isn't this lovely? I love it. It's just the nicest place. So you see, it has nothing to do with what they were teaching. It's how I saw it. It's how my little mind chose to see the world around me. And I somehow made myself believe that it was a very frightening place to live and people were not to be trusted and it was unsafe and I wish I wasn't here. And but I pretended I was all right. And I guess it was about 9 or 10 and I looked up at the crucifix and suddenly it was there, bigger than ever. And it said to me, little boy, do you see this? And yeah, I see it. Well, this is what God did to his only son that he loved. Guess what he's going to do to you? So, now, no one told me that. No church ever taught that. I figured it out all by myself, sitting there. So you can see that I took away a different message than all the other people that were there. And I found no comfort in that imaginary picture of God. And I was a very good student. I recovered from polio, and I ended up in Yale University in New Haven. And I had not had a drink, and I was a good athlete, and I was getting all A's. And I suddenly felt totally overpowered because even though I worked on all those buildings in construction, I didn't realize that all these people that would come there were so special. And they were rich, and they all knew what was going on. I suddenly go, what am I doing in here? I don't belong in here. And I could feel them rejecting me. Everywhere I'd go, they would be looking, going, how do you get in here? Who is that guy? They don't check people anymore. They let them in. They let anybody in here. What's he doing in here? And I could feel that, and it made me feel terrible. And I was at an event one night, and I was supposed to go around and meet these guys, and they all hated me, so why would I want to meet them? And I walk up, and I could see their eyes, and they would, don't join our group. We don't want to know you. I want to go over here. Well, we hate you, too. And so I never met anyone. But there was a bar there, so I said, well, if these guys are talking about drinking, why don't I have a drink? I'm 19. I haven't had a drink yet. And I went over, and I poured it down, and nothing happened. I poured another one down. Halfway through the third drink, and I said, I don't think that stuff works. And I turned around, and there were all friendly people. It was like those mean guys were gone, and everybody wanted to know me. They're going, hi, hi, hi. And I didn't know which group to go to first. I mean, they were all begging me to be their friend. So I went, huh. So I started over, and on the way over, I suddenly realized they'd be lucky to know me. And so alcohol did not do anything for me, but it changed the world that I lived in. And I liked this world. It was like Alice in Wonderland. And I said, my God, I should have been drinking in grammar school. This is absolutely astounding. And I had the most wonderful time. I was spontaneous. I was free. I was creative. I could talk about anything. And I talked, and they all left. I'm still talking. So I went back and I said to myself, wow, if 3 drinks did that, what will 20 do? And you all know what happened. I got violently ill. I lay on the bathroom floor vomiting and dry heaving. Oh, it was just awful all night long. Sick. And the next morning, my head is split open. I'm still dry heaving and gagging. And the thought occurred to me, are you going to drink again tonight? And I went, yes, I am. This puking and dry heaving and splitting headache is a small price to pay for what I had last night. So I had something very big. Regular drinkers don't have that. They have fun. They have a good time. But they don't solve the fundamental issue of being alive. I had achieved a connection with the universe. I had the equivalent of a spiritual experience. And I would go to any length to get it. And of course, when we get in here, we're after a spiritual experience, and they say, are you willing to go to any length to get it? And so that's why I paid such a big price, because the prize was so big. That's why I was willing to throw up blood and give up my high grades and go to jail and get knocked out and almost not graduate and not be on any athletic team, because I was having fun. I had found the answer. I didn't need any other answers. I had the answer to life's fundamental problem. How do I fill up this hole inside of me that bothers me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? How do I fix that? Drinking. And so I started down that career. The draft was on during the Korean War. I joined the Marine Corps. After a while, I fell in love with it. I became a fighter pilot. I got a regular commission. I decided to make it a career. I met a wonderful woman from outside of New Haven. We got married. We had 6 kids. One of my sons is here tonight with my grandson and his friend, Ryan, and it's just, I'm delighted. By the way, I have 6 children, 15 grandchildren, and I got 2 daughters in AA and 1 grandson in AA, so I have taken care of 3 generations, all on my own. I hope you're all working as hard to get our membership. My sons I'm ashamed of. They were, all 3 of them were into everything in college. It was clear they were going to join me here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I pictured the four of us on a program together somewhere. And one by one, they said, well, enough of that, and went on to become entirely responsible, wonderful members of society. And part of me is quite ashamed of them for that. You just didn't have it in you, Louis. You couldn't hang in there when the puking got tough. Oh, okay, enough of that. So I had a tour in a fighter squadron. I was with the Marine Division. I was a flight instructor. I was in the photo squadron during the Cuban Missile Crisis. The career was amazing. And I got promoted to first lieutenant, I got promoted to captain. If you looked on the outside, you would go, wow, this guy is really doing well. But alcohol was about to just take everything. It was just getting ready. It was working up, it was working up. And now it was attacking me in the planes. All of a sudden, I'm not drinking for 12 hours prior to flying. Now I'm in withdrawal in the airplane. And I don't know what it is. There's no alcohol program in the Navy. There's no such disease. So I had nowhere to turn. I didn't know anybody to ask about this. I just went, oh my God, what is this? So I would be, I thought I was going to pass out. I would start sweating. I would fly with one hand on the ejection seat in case I passed out. And I would just get through a flight, and I would come back to Cherry Point, and I'd go, I don't think you should do this anymore. And then I'd go, well, what are you going to do? I thought, I guess I'm going to do this some more. And so I'd drink again, and the next day I'd be out there, and I kept it up for about 7 months. And it just kept getting worse and worse. And one day I was on a cross country in a different plane. We had an easy plane to fly, a radar plane with two guys. And I said to myself, you have to get out of this plane now. You know how I was getting a haircut one time, and I said, I have to leave the barber shop now. And you just get up and go. And the guy said, I'm not through. Yes, you are. I'm gone. Because I can't stay in my own skin any longer. I have to get out. I have to leave. I was like that when I first came to Yale. I wanted to sit in the back of the room in case I had to leave. And it was that panic stuff. And I said, but this guy doesn't know how to fly. The other guy, if I slide out the bottom, so then I said, I can't do that. I can't leave him in the plane. The radar guy. So I called the flight leader and I said, we have an emergency over here. The oxygen's gone bad. We have to land right away. That's an emergency. So he found an Air Force base right nearby. Shoot, the 4 planes go in. We go to the club, drink some more. I feel better. And we go out the next day. They didn't find anything wrong with the oxygen. And I just said, I can't do this anymore. And I stopped. And got back to that squadron, spent about 3 months in total shame because I had failed. And pilots would go by and they're waiting, I'm going to be given some other kind of orders. And they would go by the room where I was doing the legal work. They kept me busy, and I could feel them looking in, going, God, how do we get that loser in our squadron? He's ruining our everything. And I just felt nothing. I had 3 months of shame. That's all I remember is 3 months of shame. And June was there a year ago. I was at the Brentwood group, and her friend was coming to get her 30-year medallion, right, June? And her friend mentioned to her husband, who's not in AA, hey, they got this guy Sandy Beach coming tonight. He says, I think I know him. Tell him to come outside. So I went outside, and here's the guy I've never seen in my life. And he said, if I'm not mistaken, in 1962, you were flying an F-3D radar plane on a cross-country in a flight of 4. And you declared an oxygen emergency. And all the planes had to land at an Air Force base, and you never flew again. And I went, how'd you know that? And he said, I was in the plane with you. So, what are the odds on that? And it turned out that he was another pilot, and that there was a hurricane coming to Cherry Point, and when they come, you fly all the planes somewhere safe and drink until the hurricane goes away. So there was all pilots going on that one. And he was a new pilot that had been recalled from American Airlines during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And so he introduced himself, and then the next day he came up to Oxnard and he brought photographs of the squadron. He told me all about the people and filled in all the blanks, and geez, it was just great, and I saw all this. And then he said, did you know how popular you were in that squadron? Do you know how much everybody was trying to help you get out of this? Oh my God, it broke our hearts that you weren't able to fly anymore. Oh, it was just like that. And I just went, wow. My version of those 3 months was wrong. My version of 1962 was wrong. So I went back to 1962 and I went, erase, 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 erase. And I filled in, they loved you, they were trying to help you as hard as they could, and it was a wonderful period. And now I have the most pleasant memories of 1962. So, the reason I tell you that story is, that's an example of old ideas availed us nothing. I thought I knew the truth, but I only knew my version of it. I only knew the story that I made up about what was going on. And then I emotionally reacted to my story, got very sad, and stayed that way for 42 years. Every time I thought about that period in time, oh. I'm here tonight to tell you that probably every part of your story is like that, is wrong. And those ideas that cause you so much misery have to be smashed. Smashed. Gone. And that's what our steps do. They take us through all of the character defects, everything. And as we run it by our sponsor, we see it differently. We see that wasn't so serious. Well, I saw this. And I heard a speaker one time, he said, my story's divided into 2 parts, what happened during the years that I drank and what I thought happened during the years that I drank. Ha 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 ha. And as it turns out, you could say the same thing about your childhood. My childhood divided into 2 parts. What happened when I was a child and what I thought happened when I was a child. My years at school divided into 2 parts. What happened and what I thought happened. What we want to get rid of is what you thought.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. And let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
And what's left is God's world. We just destroyed your world, which wasn't real anyway. Everybody lives in their own little world. We used to say that, there's always somebody in the crowd. You know her, she lives in her own little world. Well, so do you. And so do you, and so do you, and so do you. And our own little worlds, the building material of this world is thought. It's totally created by our thinking, and that's the world we live in. And even if we've been married 50 years, we really don't know her little world as much as we think. And she doesn't know, no one knows our little world. So if there's 6.7 billion people on the planet, there's 6.7 worlds. You know what I'm talking about? All of them made up. That's why when we stand up here and we say, I'm here to tell you my story, It's a story. Once upon a time, I was born. And then there's God's story. And that's the one we want to find. The only way to find it is to erase our story. And so somebody asked this wise man, yeah, there's 6.7 little worlds, but there's also the real world, right? And he said, well, I don't know, but no one lives there. So anyway, I went on to, of all things, the Marine Corps took this mess and made me an air traffic controller. And so now I'm bringing planes in bad weather when they can't see the runway. And I had about a year to go. And I went overseas on this last tour. And fortunately, the senior enlisted men, who are just everything in the Marine Corps, they saw what shape I was in, and they wouldn't let me get near they never let me talk to an airplane. They just said, Captain, you try to get to work the best of your ability, and we'll cover for you, and just stay over there in the tent and drink coffee and all that. And that became I had a hard time doing that, riding my bicycle over to my tent every day. And I got very, very ill. I drank around the clock. I lost 50 pounds. I had malnutrition. I had alcohol poisoning, and I didn't want to go with my buddies. I didn't even go to happy hour. I just went back to the Quonset hut, drank vodka and juice. I was trying to eat or survive on juice or soup. Everything else I would throw up. And I made it through that tour and came back to Quantico to go to a career school, and I had a grand mal seizure in the classroom, and I almost bit my tongue in half. And they put me in an ambulance, sent me to the hospital, and again, nobody knows anything about alcohol, so they all went, wonder what happened to this guy. And I was there about, 5 or 6 days, and then I went, without alcohol, I went into the delirium tremens, where you hallucinate, and I saw all these CIA was trying to break me with mental tests. And if I flunked one more, I got locked up forever. And so I'm going, please, please, and I'm memorizing. I memorized all the furniture in the hallway, and then they came back, and I said, okay, there's the corpsman, there's 2 desks, there's an elevator, blah, blah, blah. And they said, what? And I went out, and they changed it into a photo lab. I don't know how they did that. And I remember on Mission Impossible, they moved walls sometime to drive it. And so eventually, I guess I went absolutely crazy, and they put me in a straitjacket and locked me up for 6 months. So that was where I was at the bottom. And I didn't feel good about anything, and I was terrified about everything, and I was I didn't want to get out of the nut ward because it was too scary out there. I was getting used to the clay class, making belts, going to group therapy. And Alcoholics Anonymous came in and brought a meeting in one night, and the corpsman, the psychiatrist said we have no alcoholics, but the corpsman knew there was 3 of us, so he came in. You 3 drunks fall in, right face, went over to the elevator and went down, heard 2 guys tell their story, and it was wonderful. But I really didn't think I was an alcoholic, but I wanted their phone numbers in case a friend of mine was an alcoholic. And when they let me out to go back to duty, I was an outpatient going home at night and then home on weekends. Since during the Redskin game, I decided to have a beer, even though they told me if I ever drank again, my career was over. And that led to smuggling vodka into the nut ward. And they were going to catch me, there's no doubt. So on Pearl Harbor Day, 1964, I called the Northern Virginia Intergroup, and they said, wow, we have 1 AA member down at Quantico. There was just 1 member on the entire Marine Corps base, and he became my sponsor. And he came over that afternoon, packed me into a car against my objections, and took me to Manassas. And I can't believe that did it. There was a group anniversary. They talked all night. They had turkey and ham. They had square dancing. They had fiddle players. And I had 3 hours sobriety when I got there. Now I have 8 hours of sobriety. And I'm not happy, and I'm trying to make a break for it. It was winter, but there was no street lights. This thing was, I don't know where the heck, it was some odd little place, and I was on the front porch looking, how do you make a break from here? There's no light or anything to go for. And I was standing out there, and an Al-Anon lady came up, Betsy Lynch, and she put her hand on my shoulder, and I turned around, and I swear to God, it was like there was an angel there. And she said, "Come on back in, it's going to be fine." And I went, okay. That was it. That was the last resistance I had. And I've never had a drink since, and it's been a long time. My sponsor was my sponsor for 42 years. What a blessing that was. When it came close for him to pass away, we both went back to the Manassas group one last time, and we talked to each other, and we said, this has really been quite a run. I mean, we really had a lot of time together. You start out as sponsor pigeon, but then you move to friends and advisors, and you're giving each other advice. And it became a very special part of my life. I did lose my Marine Corps career. When it came time to get promoted, I was kicked out, so there was 8 of us out in the streets. And I was not a money earner. I just didn't know how to go about getting a good job. I was just panic-stricken, and so it was a real struggle. And I think the financial struggle of like 8 years worth of that finally ended our marriage, which I deeply regret because that was my childhood sweetheart. And she married someone else and provided stability to all of my kids. And my kids, every time they see me, they go, "Don't worry, Dad, he's not looking good." You guys may get back together anyway, so. And we've still, every time we see each other, it's really great. So we've stayed very, very close. And I eventually got another career just by accident. Matter of fact, I'll tell you about this interview. I was selling everything. That was the only thing you could go right into. Get an insurance license, get a stockbroker's license, get a real estate license, and all that. And I hate selling. And the mortgage money dried up in the middle 70s, and it was just a nightmare. Here I am, I got like 15 years sobriety, and if the electricity's off, how did that happen? So I'd never tell anybody, because the newcomers would go, I don't want what he has. So this guy who was a Marine in AA, and he worked up on Capitol Hill, and he said, hey, there's a retired Marine general took over this little agency that regulates credit unions, and the general counsel's a retired Marine colonel lawyer, and they're looking for a congressional liaison. Well, I'll get you an interview. And I said, what's that, congressional liaison? Well, you're supposed to know all about Congress and credit union law. And I said, oh, well, good, I'll go over there. So I go in the interview, and the Marines try to be good to each other, and the colonel's going, well, this and that and this and that. And he said, we're really looking for somebody with a little bit of a different background. And I said, well, Marine officers, we can learn anything. I know I can do it. Give me a chance. And he says, let me think it over. By the way, why did you leave the Marine Corps? And I was really needed that job. And I said, I got thrown out for drinking, but I got 10 years in AA, and I know I can do that job. He said, well, we'll let you know. And 2 weeks later, personnel called up and said, if you want the job, you got it. And I went in. I didn't have an idea what was going on. And the lawyers told me that what I did was to go to Congress and find out what they needed and come back and brief the general. And then when he testified, I wrote his testimony. When he gave speeches, I wrote his speeches. And they said, and he's testifying in a month on this big banking bill. And I went, oh, God. Well, on the table in my office was a book on the history of the credit union movement. And it was started by a Filene from Filene's department store in Boston. And he was a philanthropist, and he saw these little things in India, and he said, I'm going to get that for my employees, where they save their own money, then they borrow from each other, because they couldn't borrow from banks. I'm going to introduce that. Well, the state wouldn't let him do it unless they passed a law allowing credit unions, so he hired this lawyer who was kind of a religious zealot. He just was sold on spiritual principles. So when you read the underlying principles of how to operate a credit union, it looks like it came out of our big book. You know what I mean? And don't be selfish, and you have to look out for this. And if you save up a lot of money, don't you go in there asking for the interest rates to go up on your savings. Well, you want to keep the loan rates down, so you just take a lower rate of return on your savings and give those little guys low loan rates. You don't hear that today. You imagine doing that? Anyway, so I read this, and it just hit me like I had just found another group of people like AA. So when they brought the legislation, I remember going, well, what do you think we ought to do here? And I would just apply those principles. And I would write these spiritual statements. And so I wrote this treatise and sent it up. And they said, boy, the general better like it. He eats people for lunch, and all that. Anyway, his secretary comes back, said he wants to see you. His name was Herman the German. And I went in to see him, and he looked at me and he said, did you write this? And I said, yes, sir. He said, this is great. And I was like his boy. Anyway, I had a career there. I was there, and then the trade association. I was with him for 20 years. And the colonel and I became friends. I was down at his house one day after I'd been there about 4 years, and he said, you ever wonder why I hired you? And I said, yes, sir. I did. And he said, I just wondered what it would be like to work with someone that honest. Now, isn't that amazing? So I'm not telling you to tell somebody that you're an alcoholic or anything like that. I'm just telling you what happened to me when I told the truth. Anyway, I about 12 years ago, I retired down to Tampa, Florida, and I love it there. I travel around, I sponsor lots of people, and I have a great time in AA. So what happens in AA? This is for those of you that are new. And this is my version. Anything like June said, that's her view of it. There's no official view. There's no official view of anything. So if anything I say is at odds with what your sponsor said, go with your sponsor. You just want to stay willing, and you've got a guide, just let him take you there, or let her take you there. See, I've had a chance to look back on things now. When you get old, you start reviewing things. And a couple of things happened. First of all, I realized that as truth is revealed to me, which is what happens in AA, you can't go find it. You just start getting rid of things, and all of a sudden it becomes apparent. But that's not the final. And I find that as I move along, all of a sudden I'll see something that's even more true, and more relevant, and simpler, and continuously getting simpler. Whereas it may have taken 10 sentences to explain what you want to say, now it takes 4 words. Simple, it gets down, as Dr. Bob said, simplicity. But it's a very complex process to arrive at simplicity. And it's done by eliminating everything that's complicated. And that's why we go through, oh, what's this is bothering me? Well, I got to forgive that person. I have to get rid of that resentment. And then all of a sudden you go, wow, I see things more clearly now because the mirror has been cleaned off a little bit. And there it is, just waiting for you to see it. Nobody will tell you this. you just suddenly are aware of it, and you go, isn't that beautiful? If I were to ask, what's the AA program in 2 words, I would say let go. But it doesn't do much good to tell a brand new person, all you need to know is let go. Okay, I'll see you. I'll see you. Good luck. That is not helpful at all, is it? And yet, it's the ultimate truth. Everything that we have is letting go. We have to inventory what we want to let go of. And we just, it's the only way to turn our lives over is to let go of it. And you can't turn it over until you let go of it. So, when I hear the things, this too shall pass, I go, I don't think that's it. I think what it should say is, this too can be let go of, because it can't pass until you let go of it. I wonder when God's going to remove this. I wonder when God's going to remove this. And he's up there going, let go. I got it. I got it. I got it. God, I guess he hates me. I guess he hates me. When's he going to help me? You've been carrying that resentment for 25 years. This one deserves carrying. Were you there when it happened? You don't forgive stuff like this. Oh my goodness. What if all of you tonight, especially those of you that are new, what if you forgave every bad thing that ever happened to you, every unfair thing that ever happened, whether it was done by a person, a government, a traffic cop? What if every single thing that you kept track of, you forgave? There wouldn't be much left. That's who we are. We've kept track of all this stuff. And we walk around with it. What's your burden? Oh, I got this wrong. I got this wrong. Why don't you let it go? What would be there then? Nothing. We'd weigh nothing. There would be nothing there. That's what spirituality is nothing. Be nothing, know nothing, have nothing. That's it. I used to think that knowledge was so crucial. And AA is just the opposite. We don't come in here and learn anything. We come in here and unlearn. And unlearn. And unlearn. We get a whole step about being wrong. You know what I mean? A whole step. 10th step. It starts out with during our inventory. No, you're wrong about that. You have to make an amendment, and then amends. I don't know them amends. Yes, you do. Go make it. What? The first time my sponsor finally convinced me maybe I was wrong, I said, "You're right." He said, "No, you're wrong." And I said, "Well, it's the same thing." "Well, say it." "I'm wrong. I can't hear you." I'm wrong. We don't like to be wrong. We thought it up. Why the hell would it be wrong? I thought it up. I don't want to be wrong. And then the first time you're wrong, you go, "Ah, my God, that feels like getting a thorn out of my shoulder. Oh, does that feel good?" And Chuck Chamberlain, our hero, uncover, discover, discard. What else am I wrong about? Good. Yo, throw it away. Gone, wrong. When we're wrong, promptly admit it. Oh boy, I'm wrong again. Oh boy, I'm wrong again. Oh boy, I'm wrong again. And I got the perfect answer when you get in a political argument. You may be right. That's that. That's the end of that. There's no retort to that. What? So being wrong, getting rid of, so We unlearn everything that's wrong, and now the light starts coming in because the opening's big enough. And that is absolutely wonderful. But there's one other thing. The only place we can ever meet God and actually have conscious contact, and we have it in these moments of surrender, when alcohol beat us down, and then when we finish the last amend, and you had that sense of, oh, and then you felt the presence. We suddenly realized God's doing for us what we couldn't do for ourselves. And the word sudden is there for a purpose. Because even though they talk about the educational variety of spiritual awakening, when it arrives, it happens suddenly. The other ones happen in the very, very beginning. But anything that happens of a transformation of our consciousness happens in an instant.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom?
In an instant. In an instant. Many people say the purpose of meditation is to cause those to occur, to cause sudden changes in consciousness. And that's when we're experiencing the presence of God, and we practice the presence of God. But God only exists in the present moment. It's not a day at a time. A day at a time is a wonderful beginning because we get rid of months and years and all of that. But it's still possible to go through the morning worrying about the afternoon, and going through the afternoon resenting what we did in the morning. And so we're still in the same quagmire, but with much less quag. If you follow what I'm saying, it's much less muck. There's only a day's worth. So we've made a lot of progress, but now we got to get to this moment. And science studies the past and the future, but not the present. And a lot of churches talk about what's going to happen later and what happened in the past, but right now, where is that? And how do you get there? What is it to be right there? Well, in a literal way, you have to get rid of time. You have to get rid of time. Anything that's connected with time. So if you're worried about this afternoon, you're out of the present moment. You're up there. And most of us were taught that the happiness and the joy is just ahead. It's like a carrot that we're carrying. Hey. And I just keep going. And if you were to stop me, they say, where are you going? I said, I'm going to the next moment. Why? Because the present moment isn't as good as that one's going to be. So I'm in a hurry. And when I get there, well, of course, when I get there, the carrot's still up there, and I'm still going 5 years later. I'm still going. So there's another way. The way we get there is just like the way we found the truth. We get rid of everything that isn't the now. We get rid of everything from the past, every resentment, everything that's connected with the future, every goal, every cause, every hope, everything that is connecting us up there, we let go of and let go of. And suddenly we're in a new space. And we see somebody and they're wearing a watch. And we go, wow, I didn't know they had a watch in the now. And we stop the guy, he's wearing a spiritual watch. We go, hey, what time is it? Oh, just a minute. Hey, it's right now. Really? So we go mess around for a little while and we come back and we go, okay, what time is it now? Oh, well, let me look. Why, it's still right now. What a strange place to go. How do you get there? Well, we get rid of this, we get rid of that, we get rid of this, and finally we come up. I was talking to my son about this. And we're getting closer and closer, and there's a door, and it says, the now. So I walk up and I go, And a voice said, "Who's there?" I said, "Sandy B." He said, "Sorry, come on back when you figure out the mystery." "Well, thank you." And I go back. And then you'll never guess what the password is. Finally, I figure it out, and I go back, and I knock on the door. He said, "Who's there?" I said, "The hole in the donut." "No one. Come on in. The door's unlocked." So if you remember in our third step in the 12 and 12, said, if I turn my life over to God, I'll be like the hole in the donut. I'll be no one. So if I want to have this relationship, that's why meditation is so powerful. It takes us so that all we're trying to be in is right now. And that's where God lives. It's the only place he lives is right there. And that's why we spend not enough time, maybe, on our 11th step. We maybe kind of don't talk about that enough because it sounds mumbo jumbo or hocus pocus or something like that. But that sacred place is God's only home. It's the only place we can be alone with our own Creator, is in that quiet, in the absolute silence, where there's nothing to know, there's only things to experience. There's no way of describing it. There's no words that are connected to this particular thing. And as this moment is revealed to us, there's only one thing you can say. And I think it's the best prayer you could ever give to your higher power as you look at his universe, as you look at the gifts we've been given. And that is, wow. Wow. You made all this for me? This universe? All of the beauty that's on planet Earth? Everything that's here for me to look at and just experience? All of that was made for me? Yeah. Well, I'm too busy working to take a look at it now. I'm too consumed with money problems to really stop and look at this amazing thing that was created just for us. Our only job is to look at it. Chuck Chamberlain said, it's not my job to take care of me, that's God's job. My job is to go out and have fun with his kids and help them. Oh, you need some help? You need some help? And then I'll be taken care of. I will already be happy, so I won't need to worry about my job making me happy. I won't need to worry about my relationship making me happy. I'll already be happy. I'll be experiencing total happiness because I've let go. I don't know how to worry anymore. You follow what I'm saying? I go, worry? I'll tell you about Polly P. You know Polly P. from Washington State? We were at a conference together, and a young lady was talking to a friend of hers, and I overheard her, and evidently she was talking about her wedding. And she said, and then they put and I've never been so mortified in my life. And I hadn't heard mortified in a long time. And I said, wow, what a powerful word that is, mortified. So when I saw Polly, I said, Polly, when's the last time you were mortified? And she went, wow, I think it was 1973. And I said, really, 1973? Nothing has happened of, something, that would cause something like that? And she said, oh, I don't know. I just don't do mortification anymore. She rendered herself immune from mortification. I render myself immune from gossip, from anything. You see what happens when we're this close to our true nature. And so in closing, I would say that the search for God, for our true nature, and for the present moment is the same search. It's the same thing. It's all right there. And so let go is AA. There is no other part, from my perspective today, than letting go. When people come over with a problem that I sponsor, the pigeons that I sponsor, and I go, what is the problem? Well, it looks like I'm going to get fired tomorrow, and then there's a possibility my wife is leaving me, and then I said, okay, I've got it. You go to the movies. What? I said, I've got the problem now. You go to the movies. Okay. And I said, when you go to the movies, if you have any of that problem left, you tell God, you look at the ticket, 2 hours and 15 minutes, and you go, God, I'm going to be in the movie for 2 hours and 15 minutes. Would you watch all that stuff? Would you watch all that stuff? And then you go to the movie, get the popcorn, yay, 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 yay. 2 hours and 15 minutes. Then you come out, and you take a look at the problem. It's really smaller than when you went in. It just isn't as big. As a matter of fact, the people that I sponsor, when they bring problems over, my job is to convince them they don't have a problem, that they saw it wrong. They created the problem in their own head by telling the wrong story about the situation. And then I say, well, let's look at that situation. Now, isn't that person that got upset with you at work, didn't she just go through a divorce? And isn't one of her kids really sick? Don't you think she's probably, yeah, I forgot that. Oh, no wonder, she's probably just oh, yeah, geez. Well, why don't you go over and ask her how her kid is? Okay. Where did the problem go? It was made up in our head. So our literature says our problems of our own making. They're not kidding. We make them up, we make them all up. Hey, I have another problem I made up. See, if that's what we had to do when we have problems, just walk in and go, could I talk to you? I made up another problem. And I'd like to get your advice on what I should do. Why don't you stop making up problems? I don't know. No, this one's real. This one's real. So anyway, I think there should be a warning label on all problems. And this comes from the scene when you're sponsoring people and you go, Jack, listen to me. Your brain is broken. You've been drinking. It's broken. It doesn't work. It produces wrong information. Your brain is broken. Do you get it? Oh, yeah, okay. Well, what are you going to do about it? I don't know. I'll have to think about it. What? So, I think there should be a warning label on all problems, and it says, warning, do not think about this problem. It could blow up. Anyway, if you're new, we're just having fun tonight. We're talking about stories about different parts of our program. And we have a lot of fun with ourselves. We have fun making fun of ourselves. In the old days when a group of guys or a group of gals would get together and they'd say, Jack, what have you been up to? Then we'd have to brag to the other guys. I closed 3 deals this week. I shot a 73 out at the country club, and a couple of broads are coming over to see me tonight. You know. So what are you up to? And, you just start through all this stuff. Can you top that? Same guys, they got 10 years sobriety. Well, Ralph, how's it going? How's this week go? Oh, man, I really screwed up Tuesday. I had to make an amend down at work. It was really something how I lost my temper. Wow, that was really bad. Oh, you think you were bad? Well, I had to apologize twice. And here we are, laughing at our own humanity, free to be imperfect and relishing it. Thank you all very much.
He is probably the smartest man in AA. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I don't not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.